Welcome back to the Communication Mastery Podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. In this season in 2026, we're going to spend some time looking back and replaying some of the episodes that some of you have asked about in your comments. And in between those, I'm going to be back with little snippets each week of helpful information that you can put into practice in your business, in your life, to help you grow your communication mastery. This week, I want to pick up on some aspects of what we talked about last week with true self-awareness and look at how to become myself more fully. In other words, how to fully express the way I'm wired, the strengths I bring to the table, the areas where I need to grow, all of those things, the full benefit of who I am. How do I bring that to the settings that I'm in? Because I say this again and again, but it's worth repeating again. You're not a profile, you're a person. I'm not a profile, I'm a person. It's good for me to recognize that my profile shows me a lot about myself. It can highlight my strengths. It can also alert me to my weaknesses and any potential pitfalls in the way that I'm wired, in order that I can then take steps to address any weaknesses as well as offer the strengths that I have. And so when I recognize that, then I will begin to be aware that there will be distress at some times where my preferred languages won't be as valuable in a setting, or maybe they're less applicable, or maybe I'm in a season where they're less understood by those around me. And if that distress isn't recognized, that will hinder my communication, it'll hinder my effectiveness. But once I recognize it, then I can begin to take steps to address that and to work around it if you need to, in order that I can maintain a sense of healthy communication, even in less than ideal situations. Those people around me, whether it's my team at work or my friend circle out of work, they're going to have those dynamics going on as well. They're going to have areas where their strengths are coming through and are welcomed and are recognized and are valued. But they'll also have areas where they're bumping up against something they don't understand as well, or they're not as comfortable with, or where their own languages go into distress because they're not necessarily as valued. And so if the people around me have those dynamics going on as well, I can be a benefit by understanding those dynamics in my own life, as well as knowing and understanding how it's operating for those who differ from me. And when I can understand that, I can be so helpful to others. I think of several friends that I know who've worked with me over many years now to understand their own life language profiles, their communication style blend. And they're much better now at pulling out how to help others to navigate those kinds of dynamics. What's in distress? What's coming forward in strength? How do I navigate those differences for the benefit of the situation, for the benefit of the team, for the benefit of the family, whatever the setting may be? And the best scenario in any setting, but particularly in the workplace, is to build a picture in my own understanding, particularly if I'm the manager or the leader of the team. But even as a team member, it's important to do this, to build a scenario, a picture of each one's strengths, what each one brings to the table, what each one has to offer, and to acknowledge and recognize where those strengths may actually trigger distress in another, whether it's in me or in somebody else. And so helping one another to avoid unnecessary distress triggers, but also to process the ones that still come up and recognize it's not because a person who's different is against me, it's just because they're different. And it's a little bit like people who are multilingual, and they sort of slip into their first language while talking to somebody whose first language is not that language. I have a friend who's originally from Brazil, so Portuguese is his first language, but he speaks fluent English. And just occasionally in conversation, he'll come out with a Portuguese sentence and go, "Oh, I'm sorry, English," and then he'll say it again in English. that kind of approach to recognizing where somebody needs something from me in a different way than is natural for me or is easy for me helps us to build community, helps us to build team, and it's always a benefit in the workplace, especially so that we can adapt to one another. So I build that picture of each one's strengths and also acknowledge where it may trigger distress in others. When we have those pictures, those maps, if you like, of the communication styles in our team and in this group, then we can begin to navigate correctly in order to reach the destination that we're going for. The worst case scenario is when you see distress triggered and you take it to be a personality issue, something that's maybe fixed or unchangeable, or is being offered with malice or with ill will. When we do that, then that causes division unnecessarily, and that is always an unhealthy place to stay. We need to look at that and identify that when that sort of dynamic comes into play and say, hey, this isn't going to help us. This doesn't help me, but this doesn't help you either. Let me look at what strengths are behind the distress and see what we can draw out to bring the positive into the picture rather than simply reacting in the negative. We've said it many times before in previous episodes, but when we simply live in distress, then all we end up doing is lobbing distress flares at each other and making the matters worse. Whereas distress flares are always an invitation to help and to make a difference. And we need to adapt in those kinds of ways to recognize or to learn, actually, is more important, to learn what is necessary to reduce that distress for that specific communication style, for that specific person in that specific moment. Individually, each of us needs to take responsibility for our patterns, the way that we're wired, and the way that we respond to others around us. And we need to choose what's best for the others in the situation or for the team. We need to choose what's best for those that we're working with, whether it costs me or benefits me. Sometimes there's advantage to doing what's best for others, for me as well. Other times there's cost to me for doing what's best for others. But in the end, the team benefits when we all have that attitude of we want to see success here. And in order to see success, we have to do what's best for the others around us and not just fight for our own corner. It doesn't mean that we give up our needs or ignore our own wiring, but it does mean that we need to bring the strength of that to the table rather than just the lack or the emptiness that comes from distress. And that's what we call character. When I choose to do something that maybe costs me, but is going to benefit the task or the strategy or the team or the goal, when I do something that costs me to get us to a destination that we all want to get to, that is always a benefit. And I grow when I grow my character in that way, because communication without character is never going to bear fruit. But communication with character is always the strongest way to operate, whether in business or in the wider community. So someone who's internalized all 7 of the communication styles, they've learned the details, they've learned the facts, the qualities, the characteristics, and who's practiced at identifying them in others as well. That's the key thing that I find people miss out on again and again. They understand themselves, but they haven't practiced identifying what's different about this person that I'm relating with. What's different? What does this person need that I need to kind of pull up from somewhere deeper inside of me because it's not at the forefront of the way I come into communication. If I can learn to adapt to those around me in that kind of way, then I can bring the most valuable styles to the forefront in any interaction. Or for any challenge or for any need. And the specifics of that situation will benefit when I do that. And so becoming myself more fully is a key part of communication mastery, to recognize my distress, but also to understand my strengths and to apply both of those understandings to adaptability within the group or within the team or within the the challenge or the crisis even that we're in. Um, I'd like to finish with this, but let me just say that when there is maybe an unplanned or an unseen crisis arises, something comes around the corner, a curveball, something out of left field, that will often give us insight into where we need to grow our communication mastery, because something comes out of us when we're under pressure that shows us something about ourselves. Now, what comes out initially may not be pretty, but if I can learn from it, then that's a great benefit. And so, using the crunch moments of life, because we all have them, don't we? Using those crisis moments to as it were, to pressure test my self-awareness and my understanding of my full self, the weaknesses and the strengths, how I'm wired and how it all fits together, how I'm then applying that to other people, and whether I'm getting better at applying those insights to a specific setting. It comes out most clearly in those crunch times when the pressure's on and what's really underneath comes to the surface. And so remember to exercise apology and asking for forgiveness where what came out wasn't that beautiful. But at the same time, also learn from those times so that next time you run into something similar, the good can come out and not just the bad. The only times I've felt like I've failed with clients have been where I've not been able to help them to do that, where they've not been able to let go of offense or hurt in a way that causes them to always respond in distress to each other. And until we're willing to let go of those sorts of painful moments for the sake of the team and for the sake of our own health, if we hold on to it, it's going to become toxic for our communication. And nobody wants that. So I encourage you, take a look at the last time you had a crunch point in a communication and see how can I use that to give me a deeper awareness of how I can become myself more fully, to apply not just my strengths, but also what my weaknesses show me in order to be a more effective member of the team, a more effective leader, a more effective family member in whatever way it is, whatever setting you're looking at. Use those insights to grow and become yourself more fully. Hope that's been helpful to you. Drop me a line through my website, go to my contact form, send me a message. Let me know how that was for you and how you're going to apply some of those insights in the weeks ahead. I'd love to hear from you, and also remember to let me know what you'd like me to mention and what you'd like me to focus on in future episodes. I always enjoy hearing your feedback so that we can make sure that this Communication Mastery podcast really scratches where you're itching and gives you value going forward. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback.